From chapter 21, we see that during David's exile, God baffled Saul's plan of killing David again and again. At the same time, God used the long years of exile to train David and prepare him to be the king of Israel.
Most scholars confirm that the site of the city of Gath is located on the hill known as Tel Saphi. The city of Gath was one of the 5 major Philistine cities situated at the western end of the Valley of Elah. In Arabic, Tel Saphi translates to White Hill because of the large expanse of white rock exposed on one side of the hill's cliff. On the cliffs of the White Rock, there are natural caves that attract many pigeons and various types of birds to rest and nest. From the highest point of the Gath ruins, one can see the Philistine plain on one side and the Valley of Elah on the other. It faced Azekah from a distance and was an important strategic position. Joshua led the Israelites in defeating the Amorites, including the giants, and Gath was one of the places where they dwelled. Goliath the giant was indeed from Gath. The Philistines seized the ark and brought it to Gath. The city of Gath was one of the 5 major Philistine cities situated at the western end of the Valley of Elah. In chapter 21, it is recorded that David, to escape from Saul, once hid in Gath, but was recognized as the king of Israel. To escape, he pretended to be insane. Chapter 22, verse 1 states,
David left there and escaped to the cave of Adullam.
Adullam is located east of Gath and south of the Valley of Elah. Looking down the Valley of Elah from Adullam, the scenery is exceptionally beautiful. During the spring and summer, wildflowers bloom and butterflies flutter among them, busy collecting nectar. The earliest mention of Adullam in the Old Testament is in Genesis chapter 38, where it is described as the hometown of Judah's first and second wives. It was a city of the Canaanites. There are many caves like this in Adullam. There are hearths outside the caves. The caves extend in all directions, have multiple entrances and vents, and can accommodate many people inside. Moreover, there are traces of artificial construction. The raised platform in the middle of this cave, constructed with stones, was probably an altar. There's a smooth stone basin on the ground and was probably used to hold food. This was probably a device for pressing oil. At this time, David was hiding in the cave of Adullam, hitting rock bottom in his life. We can take a glimpse of his inner world from Psalm 142, which he wrote.
In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look on my right hand and see. There is no one who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me. No one cares for me. I cry to you, O Lord, I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Even in very difficult situations, David still firmly relied on God. This is the most important character of a man after God's own heart. Let's continue to read 1 Samuel chapter 22. When his brothers and all his father's house heard of it, they went down there to him. Everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him, and he became captain over them. Those who were with him numbered about 400. God works in amazing ways. These people from the bottom of society began to be trained in the cave, and they turned out to be David's counselors and warriors.
This is the land of Moab, looking across from the west shore of the Dead Sea. Chapter 22 says that when David was fleeing, he had gone to Moab to seek help from the king of Moab. He stayed there until the prophet Gad told him to leave Moab and go back to the land of Judah. Chapter 25, verse 1 says that Samuel died in Ramah. It is our assumption that David, who was hiding in En-Gedi, probably felt that he had lost the protection of Samuel. So, to feel safer, he went back to hide near Maon and Carmel.
There was a man in Maon whose property was in Carmel. The man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. The woman was intelligent and beautiful, but the man was harsh and badly behaved. He was a Calebite.
Carmel was north of Maon, only 1.5 kilometers away. Going south on the highway from Ziph, very soon you will reach Carmel. 2 more turns, and over the hilltop is Maon. We found the ruins of a large house in the wilderness of Maon. It is a 4-room structure and storage rooms. Although the age of the ruins has not been verified, we can imagine that if this was Nabal's residence, from here, one could see Carmel, the location of his own property. Carmel means garden in Arabic. There's plenty of water here, and the grassland is rich. In the wilderness of Carmel, David and his men probably tried to protect Nabal's shepherds from harassment. In the ancient Middle East, sheep were not just a source of meat. The wool was also a source of wealth. Between spring and summer, it is the sheep shearing season. Chapter 25, verse 2 says that Nabal was shearing sheep. As a ranch owner, Nabal traditionally held banquets and entertained workers generously. David sent his men to Nabal, hoping to get some food and wool. But contrary to his expectation, Nabal not only refused to give him anything, but mocked David as a servant who ran away from his master. After David's men went back to the wilderness of Maon and reported this to him, David was so enraged that he ordered everyone to bring their weapons and follow him to settle scores with Nabal.
This was quite puzzling. David was able to spare Saul, who was trying to kill him, and patiently wait for God to act. But the sarcastic words of Nabal occurred in David's wrath, that he swore an oath. God do so to David and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him. It is not mentioned in the Bible that David had prayed about this to God, and this was probably why it got to him. If David had killed Nabal, his name would have been tainted. Thankfully, God prepared a woman with wisdom and courage for David, who was Abigail, wife of Nabal.
In Maon, Abigail heard about her husband Nabal's arrogant treatment of David's subordinates. She asked the servants to bring sheep, wine, grape cakes, fig cakes, and other gifts. It was loaded on a donkey to go to David. She had done this without informing her husband. When Abigail saw David in the wilderness of Maon, she got off her donkey and bowed down before David, begging David to take the gifts and forgive her family. Chapter 25, verse 26 through 30 says that Abigail specifically asked David not to take vengeance with his own hands and shed the blood of the innocents. David said to Abigail,
"Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you to meet me today. Blessed be your good sense, and blessed be you who have kept me today from blood guilt and from avenging myself by my own hand." No wonder that God calls David a man after his own heart. One of the reasons is that David was humble enough to receive advice. God kept David safe from blood guilt by the advice he received by Abigail.
Therefore, David accepted the gifts Abigail brought as a symbol of forgiving the humiliation from Nabal.
The Bible says that every time Saul acted as if he had repented, But after the incidents, his heart was still hard. As a result, David continued to flee from Saul in order to stay alive.
Chapter 24 says that when David was hiding in the cave in En-Gedi, he had the first opportunity to kill Saul. At the time, David's men wanted to seize the chance and kill Saul, but David stopped them and only quietly cut off a corner of Saul's cloak. In chapter 26, on the hill of Hakilah facing Jeshimon, David had the second opportunity to kill Saul. David and Abishai went down into Saul's camp by night and saw Saul deeply asleep. Abishai was going to kill Saul, but David stopped him and only took the spear and water jug near Saul's head.
David knew that he too was anointed, but he twice spared Saul's life because he feared God and was willing to wait for God's timing.
At Spring of Water International Ministries, we invite you to journey with us, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Isaiah 55:10. To find out more, follow Spring of Water International Ministries.